Hello, home brewers on YouTube. I'd like to talk a little bit about yeast harvesting. I've seen many variations of this on YouTube videos, and most are somewhat correct, so I'm not disrespecting anybody. But I do have a few thoughts I'd like to share with you on this subject, and perhaps you'll get some greater success. The most common mistake, I think, is harvesting yeast is that people store it in a container. They pitch the same sample in a batch of beer, and after fermentation they repeat this process. The result of this practice is simply you're cloning a continually degrading yeast colony. For example, you will end up with second, third, fourth generations, and so on and so forth. This will result in mutations, degradation of yeast quality, and most likely contamination. For a home brewer, we have the advantage over commercial operations because we only need a small amount to ferment a brew. Commercial guys could likely be using cultures of 1 or 2 pounds or even larger depending on the amount of volume they're fermenting at once. Now let me make a point. For those of you who remember copying or dubbing an audio tape or VCR tape, the master sounded great, the first copy far less quality, the second copy even had a worse quality, and so on. Yeast works the same way. So how do we solve this problem? Obtain a couple of ounces, 20 milliliters or so, of yeast from your fermenter or carboy, and this should be a one-time process if you follow the rest of my examples. Make a fresh batch of wort. I suggest 2,000 milliliters. And this is very important. It should not be higher than 1.040 specific gravity. You will stress the yeast. Add yeast nutrients, a warm spot for it to ferment, and pitch your yeast. Now you have created a very happy environment for your yeast, resulting in very healthy and viable yeast colonies. If you're harvesting yeast from a commercial beer, you may have to repeat this 2 or 3 times to build some volume of cells per milliliter. At this point you're thinking, I already do all of this, so what's the big deal? Well, the next step is the key. Make a starter, a very large one. Use half of it to pitch in your brew. Store the other half. You now have a master copy of healthy, viable, non-stressed yeast that is not mutated. Healthy and strong yeast can dominate their environment and lower the chances of infection, just like in healthy humans. Always keep a master copy. Pitch this master copy in a yeast starter, wake it up, feed it, let it multiply, use half in your brew, store the other half. I store my yeast as follows. Allow it to settle out for a couple of days, pour off the beer, add distilled water, close it in a sanitary container and refrigerate at 33 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. If you wake it up and feed it every 2 or 3 weeks, whether you're brewing or not, you will maintain a good master supply of yeast. And you know, going to the brew store and paying $8 every time you brew can cost you a lot of money in a year's time. So by having a viable master copy of yeast on hand at all times, you can brew when you want, and you will get very, very good results. In fact, you will find that your brew will start fermenting almost immediately. It will probably ferment out in 3 to 4 days instead of the 1 week to 10 days that it takes when you pour a vial from your brew store. Now, I'm not trying to take business away from the yeast suppliers by any means, because I do buy vials of yeast for different specific needs, but I do keep a master of ale yeast, for example, on hand and ready to use at any time. So just some food for thought on ways to brew your yeast starters and get some excellent results for your upcoming brews. Have a good day, guys. Cheers.